and welcome to our TV show featuring documentaries revealing the realities behind myths using research and scholarship. I'm your host, Ergün Kırlıkovalı, and I will be with you every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're welcome to send me your feedback at #ethocide. When President Ronald Reagan stood before the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin in 1987 and uttered those historic words, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall." Remember that? When that was done, Soviet Union's end was in sight. During late 1980s, many republics in the Soviet Union were already hopeful that independence, democracy, and prosperity would finally arrive. On September 23, 1989, Azerbaijan was among the first Soviet republics to assert its sovereignty and adopt its own constitution. Months passed. Just when we all thought all is well that ends well, something dreadful has happened. Only 4 months after Azerbaijan's assertion of its sovereignty, on January 20th, 1990, to be exact, Soviet troops invaded Baku and committed a massacre against peaceful demonstrators. With the approval of Mikhail Gorbachev, Secretary General of the Communist Party, Soviet troops marched into Baku, killing hundreds of unarmed Azerbaijani civilians, and many were injured on the same day. The day has gone down in Azerbaijani history as Black January. Azerbaijan's pro-Moscow regime, installed by Gorbachev, grew weaker and weaker. Popular pressure finally led Azerbaijan to break away from Soviet rule and declare its independence on August 30th, 1991. Those of us old enough may still remember how the Soviet flag was lowered from the Kremlin and replaced with the flag of Russia on December 25th, 1991. And the USSR was officially dissolved the next day. Thus, since 1918-1920 time period, when the First Republic of Azerbaijan lived, before coming under Soviet rule, Azerbaijan was free again, a free republic. Last few years of Soviet rule were extremely painful, though, for Azerbaijan. Starting in 1988, Armenia began to make illegal territorial claims against Azerbaijan. By 1989, as a result of ethnic cleansing perpetrated by Armenians, about 250,000 Azerbaijanis were deported from Armenia. As the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Armenia revved up its intermittent aggression into a full-scale war against Azerbaijan. By 1993, receiving significant Russian military assistance, Armenia went on to occupy the entire region of Karabakh, along with the 7 Azerbaijani districts around it. That's 20% of Azerbaijan's territory. The war resulted in the deaths of 30,000 Azerbaijanis, ethnic cleansing of some 800,000 Azerbaijanis, around 50,000 from the Nagorno-Karabakh region, and the balance of about 750,000 from the 7 surrounding regions. It was a human disaster. In May 1994, Russians mediated a ceasefire. As a result of this terrible defeat and loss of Shusha, the cradle of Azerbaijani culture, Azerbaijan was traumatized. Altogether, around 1 million Azerbaijanis became refugees and internally displaced persons. Peace negotiations started under the guidance of OSCE-Minsk group, with the US, Russia, France as co-chairs. OSCE or OSCE, stands for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and it was supposed to encourage a peaceful, negotiated resolution to the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. OSCE-Minsk group was a complete failure, though, as it achieved absolutely nothing, even remotely resembling peace in the years it was in charge. They kept traveling to exotic conference locations, enjoyed the five-star hotel hospitalities, loitered around bars, and did absolutely nothing to end the brutal Armenian occupation and allow the return of Azerbaijani refugees to their own homes. There may be some reasons for this incredible incompetence, insincerity, and clumsiness. All of the three co-chair countries had significant and vociferous Armenian populations in them. Siding with Armenians meant political contributions, votes, and dollars. Then there were those thinly veiled anti-Turkish, anti-Azerbaijani, and Islamophobic prejudice in the hearts and minds of the co-chairs. Moreover, a sense of Christian solidarity with Christian Armenia meant doing nothing was safe enough. And that's what they did, nothing. OSCE-Minsk could go on for decades without producing any peace. And it was fine with them, as they proved to be masters of status quo. Armenia engineered to formation in the occupied territories the so-called Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, with the hope of winning international recognition. To the disappointment of the Karabakh Armenians, NKR for short, Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, was never recognized by any country in the world, not even Armenia. Thus, the plan to legitimize the brutal military occupation fell through. Azerbaijan has always stated that it was ready to offer Nagorno-Karabakh the highest degree of autonomy within its internationally recognized borders. However, the Armenian side rejected autonomy, wanting to annex the region and adjacent territories to Armenia. Azerbaijan pinned its hope on the OSCE-Minsk group and diplomacy to restore its territories, with no results though. The maximalist demands of the Armenians prevented any peaceful solution. Let's fast forward to 2020, to the 44-day war of liberation that resulted in a decisive military victory for Azerbaijan and a disastrous defeat for Armenia. The outcome of this Second Karabakh War deeply embarrassed and agitated Armenia and the boastful, arrogant, deceitful Armenian diaspora. It can be safely said that this latest war was a response to the failure of the first in 1992-1994 time period to resolve the conflict. On July 12, 2020, Armenia, claiming to restore an old border checkpoint, attacked Azerbaijan's sensitive export pipelines with sudden and intense artillery. Armenia's ex-president Robert Kocharyan is on record for saying that the skirmishes were provoked by Armenia. Source, Azatutun, December 5th, 2020. The skirmishes continued on July 13th, killing at least 17 military and 1 civilian and injuring many Azerbaijanis. Among Azerbaijani military casualties were 1 major general, 1 colonel, and 2 majors. Hostilities went on in one form or another without interruption until the end of July. After the July 2020 clashes, the Azerbaijani leadership realized that war was the only way to reclaim its territories. Armenia habitually provided the necessary pretext again by attacking Azerbaijan on September 27, 2020. Thus, after a hiatus of about 8 weeks, the skirmishes between the two sides resumed. This time in Nagorno-Karabakh and not in the same areas as the July clashes, which eventually escalated to the scale of full-on warfare resulting in the liberation of Nagorno-Karabakh. The humanitarian catastrophe experienced during the 44-day war could have been avoided had Armenian politicians sought a compromise. The territories Armenians arrogantly claimed are recognized by the international community as part of the Republic of Azerbaijan. The position of the international community is based on 4 United Nations Security Council resolutions, numbers 822, 853, 874, 884, which were adopted in 1993. The resolutions clearly recognized Nagorno-Karabakh and the surrounding 7 regions as part of the Republic of Azerbaijan and called for the immediate and unconditional withdrawal of the Armenian armed forces from the occupied territories. Several factors have played an important role in reigniting the passions leading to the 44-day war of liberation. Number 1 was the perpetual ineptness and the failure of the OSCE-Minsk group to come up with a solution to the conflict. Number 2 was the belligerent rhetoric of the Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, claiming Karabakh is a part of Armenia. Number 3 was the July 22, 2020 skirmishes that resulted in the killing of an Azerbaijani general and several military officials. And lastly, number 4, pressure from the Azerbaijani people on their government to restore their territorial integrity. Enough was enough. I might add that a majority of the Armenian population left the war zone despite calls by local Armenian authorities in Hankendi to remain. What's worse is what Armenian news outlets have reported on November 14, 2020, that Armenians were burning their homes, destroying their gardens, and even chopping the trees in a forest around Kəlbəcər and other regions before returning these territories to Azerbaijan by December 1st, 2020. If you are a history aficionado like myself, this should not come as a surprise to you. Armenians did the same thing 100 years ago in Izmir, Turkey. As Turkish armies stormed to liberate Izmir from Greek military occupation, Armenian residents of Izmir set fire to the Armenian neighborhood. That fire grew to consume much of Izmir. What Armenians could not have, Turks shouldn't have it. That was the frame of mind. That was the Armenian mentality back then. We see from reports in Karabakh today that not much has changed in the Armenian psyche in the last 100 years. They're stuck. Perhaps that was a blessing in disguise as Turks rebuilt the city to its current magnificence. As one who was born and raised in that beautiful city called Izmir, there is now a wonderful central park called Fuar, with international trade fair grounds on it, boasting multi-purpose commercial and cultural events, concerts, and more. I'm certain that the Azerbaijanis will do the same in Karabakh, rebuild it to its previous grandeur. If we can put aside this display of hate by some Armenians, which defies rational analysis, I'm still hopeful that coexistence, like much of the second millennium, will be a reality again. The talks are going on at the Russian-brokered ceasefire to open up new channels of communication and transportation, which will help boost trade and commerce in the region. Safety and prosperity may lead to peace and closure. If Armenians can abandon their anti-Turkish, anti-Azerbaijani, and anti-Islam rhetoric and give peace a chance, I'm certain that a just and lasting peace can be achieved, addressing the genuine concerns of all parties within the framework of territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. The Azerbaijani ambassador to the United States, His Excellency Elin Süleymanov, put it very nicely in his essay, Seizing the Opportunity for Lasting Peace Between Armenia and Azerbaijan, dated 22nd of February, 2021. He says, now there exists a fresh opportunity to forge a lasting peace and to extinguish a lingering conflict in the South Caucasus region, where processes of normalization and economic integration are underway in the aftermath of last fall's 6-week war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. 30 years since formally declaring its independence from the Soviet Union, Armenia can finally begin moving towards meaningful sovereignty. The Armenian people have an opportunity to extricate themselves from the emotional and economic burdens of carrying out an illegal occupation, to shed the effects of a long conflict, and to live alongside their Azerbaijani neighbors in peace. Well said, Ambassador Süleymanov. Will this be the last war? Will genuine, fair, and lasting peace eventually come to the Caucasus? What are the next steps? Well, those are great discussions for another time. Thank you for joining me, and see you next week.